Let's just start then. I'm super excited to be here today to present for you. I am Martin. I am an engineer here at Magma Math, and I'm also a Swede. So my apologies for perhaps a bit of a weird choice of wording or an odd accent. But to my help, I have my American colleague, Jillian. So Jillian, do you want to say a few words about yourself before we get going?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Martin. So my name is Jillian, and I'm a math and computer science teacher in California. I've taught up and down the state. I've also taught internationally in several countries, and I'm really happy to be here this morning with Martin. So thank you all for your time, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. Okay, so before we get started, a quick background on what Magma Math is. So we are a K-8 math platform that focuses on handwritten solutions and data analysis of all the valuable data that arise in the classroom during a math class. And we actually started out in Sweden about 6 years ago when we wanted to do something about helping the teachers understand the level of readiness that their students are at. So why is this important, you may ask? Well, if we can at all times understand the level of readiness that the students are at, we can individualize the teaching and actually make sure that we improve the chances for these students to grasp the concepts that we are learning currently and get to that level of conceptual understanding. So the way we went about it was that we started visiting a lot of different classrooms to learn as much about math education as we could. And what we realized was that during a math class, a lot of valuable data arise in the classroom. But this data is very hard to capture when you're working only manually and not using any digital tools. So that was the first insight that, okay, to capture the data, we need a digital tool. And the second thing that we realized was that math is a very creative subject, best done by hand, perhaps on a piece of paper with a pen. So we need to allow for students to work creatively and have them do their solutions the same way that they would have been doing if they would have been working manually. So with these two insights combined, we created Magma Math. So what it is today is a math platform where students work directly on the screen, as we can see here to the left. The student is working on an iPad with a touch pen, but it works on a computer without touch as well, if you want to do that. So you write your solution, you write your answer, the exercise gets corrected automatically, and your solution is also stored for the teacher, which will go further into depth with further down the road. And all the results here are gathered in a result matrix for the teachers to get that simple overview of the classroom and the level of readiness of each student. And instead of just like standing here and talking, I was thinking of showing you the platform instead. So now I'm going to try to share another screen, which is going to be interesting. So I hope that you can see my screen now. Jillian, can you confirm?
Yep, we can see it.
That's perfect. Okay, so I am now logged in as a student in Magma Math. I have entered an assignment that my teacher has created for me. It is called Area and Perimeter of Rectangles, which we can see here. And I have just started this assignment. So I am on 1A here. And the question is, what is this figure called? Before we answer this, let me just show you a bit about the drawing area. So this here is the drawing area. It's dynamic, so you can zoom out and you can move around and you can zoom in. And if you want to work creatively with the colors, you're also free to do that, for example. Now I'm just gonna clean this drawing area, clicking the trash bin here. Okay, and I'm gonna try to answer question number 1A. So I'm gonna take my chances and say that this is a rectangle. I'm gonna mark the rectangle and press done. And then we get that green color saying correct. Okay, interesting. Let me see if, am I still like, are you still hearing me, or am I experiencing some internet connection here?
We can hear you well.
Errors. Okay, let me try to restart this and see. Okay, so this is a wonderful time to not being able to access here. Let me, while I'm working on this, just show what that looks like as a teacher instead. So that was the student side, and let's switch to the teacher side. Okay, so I hope that you can see my screen now. I'm going to take my chances that you can. And this is the overview that you get into when you log in as a teacher. So here you can just see all the assignments that you have created. And you can see here that this one is called area and perimeter of rectangles. So this is the exact same exercise that we were into as a student before something went wrong. And if I click here now, let's hope that this here at least gives me something. I seem to be experiencing some sort of issues both on the iPad and the computer at the same time, which is super interesting and a very good timing. Okay, so I'm gonna see what I can do about this, and instead we'll just flip back to the presentation. Okay, so what I was going to show you was this view here, that all solutions from different students are gathered and easily accessible for you as a teacher. So you can not only see the quantitative results, but also go into depth of each and every student and see the different strategies that they have been applying to this specific problem. So I was now thinking of handing over to you, Jillian. Would you care to talk a bit about how you can use like this view in a teaching situation?
Yeah, so, I guess in particular, I think, whether it's in remote instruction or as we're coming back in person, a lot of times we have really nice tools to have students working through the computer. And then we don't necessarily have a way to bring the whole class back together to analyze those results. So we're either presented with individual student data for us to collect as teachers, or students are able to go back and review their own work. But a lot of times what we'd like is after they have that either individual or group practice, we want to bring it back into a lesson where students can actually see what their classmates were working on and what other ideas were shared on a particular type of problem. So what we're able to do here is we actually have the student work compiled, not only for the teacher to view, but for you to bring back into the lesson so that students can see what one another were working on. So it is possible to either share the student work with your class. You can see on Martin's slides the names are showing. You can also remove the student names so that the discussion is really about what methods were used to solve a problem versus who was the student behind those methods. And I think that's something that, especially in math, we know a lot of students are maybe lacking confidence towards their maybe students don't want to present their work unless they know for sure that it's right. That's what they care about a lot when presenting in front of their peers. And so we can remove the student names from that, and we can focus the discussion around the different methods that were used, the different ideas that were presented, and not necessarily having to make it about which individuals came up with those ideas. So we can have a really great discussion about that. Something else that I love is sometimes we do like to critique either errors that were made or strategies that work some of the time and not all of the time. And so it's a really great way for us to ask really strategic questions of the class so we can dig deeper into the methods that were used. And again, that's taking away from, we're not discussing whether the answer is right or wrong. We're really opening up a mathematical discussion where students can elaborate on ideas, they can make connections to different strategies that were tried. And we can start to slowly pull out the knowledge from individual students that we know they have about the problem they just worked on.
Yes. Okay, and so I'm working on some of these like technical issues that we experience in the meanwhile. But thank you for talking a bit about that part, Jillian. So the next thing that I was going to show you from the teacher side was sort of the quantitative summation of the class results from an exercise. So what you can see here is the result matrix or the heat map. And on the vertical axis, you can see the students. And on the horizontal axis, you can see the exercises. And here we can actually see which students have got the correct answer on the first attempt. That's in green. And yellow means that they have got it correct, but they have attempted several times. And red means that they have not got a correct answer yet. So here we can actually, or maybe let me ask you, Jillian, like how would you use this in a school setting or in a teaching setting?
Yeah, I mean, I think as teachers, we do have a responsibility to our schools and our departments to collect data, but sometimes that is cumbersome. It takes a long time, or we're not sure what to do once we have it. And so, what I appreciate here is that it's all collected. It's very easy to get a glance and see from the colors maybe where I need to begin focusing my attention. And so there's a lot of things we can do as teachers to design future lessons based on maybe an exit ticket or some activity I'm collecting today might inform my plans for the rest of the week. It might inform how I'm creating my student groups for the next lesson, who I know needs to go have a little bit additional support, who's ready to move forward. But what I like again about the screen that Martin's showing us here is we can also remove the student names from the data, and we can actually have a talk about data with the class. So I would love to show it to my students. The names are off of this, so the pressure is off about who it is that's getting questions right or wrong. And students can have kind of that ownership over their learning and decision making. So if students look at this data, they may pick out specific questions that they feel the class, needs to go back and look at. And so I look at question 2B. I'm looking at question 4B where there's more reds. And those might be the questions where we actually look at those first as a class, and students are able to make that choice. So students feel a sense of ownership over what we're doing in a lesson, instead of them hearing, just from the teacher, I'm telling you what to work on, I'm telling you what we need, I'm telling you what's missing. The students are actually making that decision, which I find is really empowering.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so Actually, I have just like, this is such a bad timing with the technical issues that we are experiencing here. I apologize so much for this. This is, even if you perhaps don't believe me, this is not a common thing. I don't know what's wrong. I've contacted the tech team and I hope to get this solved very soon. But so I was actually thinking of doing a bit of a more detailed demo for you. I'm glad that we at least saw some of the platform before this happened. I'm thinking, like, I have a last slide, which is just about the more sort of every exercise in Magma Math is categorized, which means that you can get very granular data and reports on each assignment that you do. So, for example, here we have made an assessment of some different areas in mathematics, and here you can see which subchapters are the class struggling with. So we can see, for example, within geometry, we can see that surface area and area are the two subchapters which we need to focus some extra on. And within the number system, we can see that operations on fractions is the one that we are struggling with. So this really helps us, pinpoint which areas to focus on. This can also be done in the beginning of a semester and the beginning of a month or a week, and to sort of set the goals for that period of time. And then we can do the same assessment towards the end of that period to see if we got any results from the areas that we focused on. Jillian, do you have anything to add regarding the sort of more granular reports that you can get?
Yeah, one that comes to mind that is a huge challenge, especially for those of us who teach like mainstream math courses to students, is we have a responsibility to help our special education students. And I think oftentimes it's hard for us as teachers to be keeping up with all of the extra supports that we know our students deserve, but also that we are obligated to provide. And so I think something that's really valuable in this type of reporting is that we can actually help, very, very clearly track our students on IEPs to ensure that they're meeting their goals for each reporting period, and that we can actually collect work samples that go along with those. So I can create assignments for students who have particular IEP goals. If there's certain standards or certain topics that I want to make sure those students are successful in, I'm going to be tracking those very closely, but the data reporting is going to be created for me so that I can work more closely with my instructional aides and my special education support team to make sure that everyone has access to that data and that we know where students are at particular points throughout the school year. So I think it's really valuable for the whole class to have this type of data, but in particular groups of students that do have individual goals, I would be tracking those. And this data is created for me so that I can print it out. I can bring it to the IEP meeting. I love that all stakeholders can see it. So parents can have a copy of this. Anyone else on that student support team can have a copy so that we're all understanding where students are at certain points in the year to make sure we're helping them be successful and we're providing the supports to help them along the way.
Yeah, thank you. And just a last note here. If you are curious to try out Magma, we would be so happy to assist you along the way. We are offering a 60-day free trial that you can access. And the only thing you have to do is just send me an email at martin@magmamath.com. And in this 60-day free trial, We also offer PD to help you, use the platform in an efficient way or smart ways. And there are no signups or anything. So it's just 60 days. And if you don't want to continue, that's completely fine. So no obligations. But it would be super fun to have some more teachers trying it out and working with it in the classrooms. So I don't have anything more to add. It's been a very interesting session, this, and I'm happy that I got the chance to come present for you. I hope I didn't scare you off with these technical issues. Jillian, do you have any final words?
You're awesome, Martin. Thanks for working through it. And we really appreciate everyone getting a quick glance as to what we have at Magma and maybe how it can support some of the challenges and some of the things, we look to improve as we head back into the next school year. So I really appreciate everyone's time.
Yeah. Do we have any questions to answer before we?
Martin, Jillian, is Magma Math mainly for classrooms, or if we have small groups, like intervention groups, would that work, or is it mainly for general classroom?
Yeah, because you're able to work with either whole classes or small groups of students, I think it's perfectly, appropriate to be done in either setting. I think I'd be using it slightly differently if I was working with like an intervention group versus a whole class, but there is content for both groups. You can even create your own content through the platform. So if you're working with a special curriculum for, a small group of students or special, like after school tutoring programs, you can actually use your own content with students through the platform as well.
Great, thank you.
I also just realized that we are having a session on Wednesday as well. If someone wants to join in again and perhaps see the platform in action.
And Martin, I'll share with my team some of the technical difficulties we were having today and have somebody reach out to you.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Thanks. So Martin, Jillian, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate you sharing information about Magma Math, and we look forward to seeing you on Wednesday on those pieces. And if you have any questions or want to try out Magma Math, please contact Martin, and his email is on the screen at the moment.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Cool.
Thank you, Trin.
Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.